Don't freak out. This is Florida. Take away the water. Now, go to the planet Mars and drop in Florida. I'm going to show you how this pattern is responsible for this three-sided pyramid. And when I'm done, my short history of Mars is going to impress you in how we explain the cylinder of Mars. Because all of these are part of a cataclysmic, of an apocalyptic history that formed the entire surface of the planet. Not part of it, all of it. Don't forget to click that like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to leave me a comment down below. And welcome to Apocalypse 45, a brief history of Mars, the three-sided pyramid, and the cylinder explored. We're going to start with a brief history of Mars because to understand Mars is to understand the proper orientation of planetary formation as it relates to Venus, Earth, and Mars. And we're going to do that by looking at an image snapped of the surface of Mars by the Curiosity Rover right around the same location as the purported cylinder of Mars.
Hey kiddos, listen, I just need to have one quick conversation with you about our solar system's formation. You know, how they explained it to us in school. Take a deep breath, but the helical rotating vortex model for our solar system formation, it's completely fabricated. Absolutely no grounding in reality. Completely unrepeatable in the lab. No math model works. It just doesn't add up.
It's bad. Things are easier to understand as a circuit.
We're going to look at a model where a carbon-rich dust was emitted in the solar wind and a water condensated at the opposite cold end. Water from one side and Earth from the other, coating three planets, Venus, Earth, and Mars. At the two ends were the proto-Saturn, often called the Black Sun, and the other was what was developing to be our current sun. Let's start with the evidence that the surface of Mars was layered.
This is crucial in our understanding of Mars because you will find this layering feature is ubiquitous to the whole planet, and examples can be found globally. So whatever formed Mars did so in layers over a long period of time. This did not happen from mineral sedimentation. These layers are too thin and too perfect for that. These are layers of a clay substance being deposited like a mist. And for there to be layers, there would need to be a cycle of layering where the conditions changed and then returned. Layer, change, layer, change, layer, change. But what was the change? The answer is water. Clay, water, clay, water, clay, water. This is the exact same process that formed the surface of the Earth. And we see that with the same remnant evidence here in the limestone on Earth. Layers with definitive separation, suggesting something cyclical. Clay, water, clay, water, clay, water. Eventually baked into limestone. Now, one might wonder if there's any evidence for this, and in fact there is in the Native American Ute tribe's oral history of the creation of Earth. I'm going to say this as directly as I can. We need to begin taking these stories as literally as we can because they are telling us quite accurately and quite directly how the planets formed through a layering of clay and water. The two holes represented in this story are the binary protostars, with one being Saturn and the other being our current star we call the Sun. These are the two holes where the material solidified and was sent into the solar wind, first from one side and then from the other, coating and watering the surface of these three planets.
In our Ute creation story, the creator is Sonoyev. He's up in the heavens and he's all by himself. He's very lonesome. So he snaps his fingers And when he did, there appeared light. He began to talk to this light, and he said, Mwige, Davach, you'll be the sun, and you'll be the guiding light for all things. And he took that sun and puts it over his right shoulder. And we know that sun can be a little intense, so everything the Creator makes, he makes an opposite. And so rain and snow is the opposite. And he puts those on his left shoulder. And the Creator is not happy yet. So he decides to make a hole through the heavens. And he takes rain and snow and the earth that was in the hole and drops into. And he does this for a long time because his intention is to create Mother Earth. And he's talking all the time he's doing this. You will be the mother. I will give you everything you're going to need to be able to provide what will be needed.
So with this model, you can see that anyone who tries to run a simulation on Mars and attempts to add oceans to the existing lowlands would be missing a step in the history of our solar system. The planets were filled with shallow ocean depressions created by water accumulation. Given the subtropical evidence found on the shores of Antarctica, we can assume that the entire planet, or at least the Earth, probably Mars and Venus also, were tropical rainforests with large swamps and shallow oceans. Now, the Bible actually talks about this substance being highly nutritious. That is, it talks about a substance falling called manna from heaven. I can only surmise that whatever this substance was that fell, it was very supportive of life. Now, what does that mean for life here on Mars? Once again, we need to look at a prominent version of ancient mythology, drawn from the texts like the Shiva Purana or other Puranic traditions. In this tradition, Mangala is Mars, and Mangala is born the son of Bhumi Devi, the earth goddess, also called Prithvi or Bhumi. His birth occurs when Lord Vishnu, in his Varaha boar avatar, rescues the earth from the demon Hiranyaksha, who had submerged her in the cosmic ocean. Now, importantly, Vishnu embraces or gifts the earth a red coral, sometimes described as a token of their union or directly the act of lifting her. The earth accidentally drops the coral into the ocean, and from it emerges a beautiful red-hued child named Lohitanga, meaning red-limbed or red-bodied. This is a description of Mars and a core that was made of ferrous materials. Ferrous meaning iron. This child is nurtured or mentored by the sage Bharadwaja in his hermitage. Upon learning about his divine yet unusual origins from the sage, the young Mangala retreats to the forest to perform severe penance for a long time, growing in spiritual power and maturity. Pleased with his devotion and tapas, Lord Brahma, the creator god, grants him the exalted status of Graha, planet in the celestial sky, establishing him as Mangala, the ruler of the planet Mars. So here in this ancient tale, we have not just a story of how the planet was formed, it goes on to talk about how it goes into the forest for a long period of time, which is to say, Mars had forests. Now, the narration explains why Mars is not only red, but why it's called Bhuma, or the sun of the earth, and its astrological association with courage, energy, aggression, land, and soil are all evidence of a life-bearing planet. Some variants link him to drops of Shiva's sweat or blood falling on the earth. These mean that it's very likely the water was coming from below us and below Mars, moving north, while the source of the clay was moving from above us, which is Venus, going south. And so it is these mythology that give us a different understanding of what happened in our past. Not just a different understanding, a defining understanding of how the planets formed, how the solar system originated, how we originated into the reality that we're at. No story gives us a better definition of the surface of Mars prior to the apocalypse than the story of Mangala. These myths were recorded in ancient texts, not to give us some sense of joy because we have a story. They were recorded in order to give us in the future. Today, an understanding of our solar system's formation. In the same way that these temples around the world express levels of technical accuracy that we can't even begin to accommodate today, that we can't even begin to replicate, these ancient mythological traditions give us levels of detail about our solar system unavailable in any other way. Let's keep going. So we have an ancient account of a forest on the planet Mars. Now, let's take a moment to look at the cylinder of Mars and why it is quite likely petrified wood. First, if NASA wanted to place the Curiosity Rover in a place with just about the absolute lowest chance of finding the existence of life, or even any fossilized evidence of life, they couldn't have picked a better location than to land inside the Gale crater on Mars. All round craters found on the surface of Mars were created in the apocalypse, and they represent a release of pressure like a thumb that had been pressed down and then suddenly removed. None of these craters on the surface are impact craters. They are electrical discharge craters, and the Gale crater is a massive discharge crater, meaning anything that was on the surface above this location would have been completely and totally eviscerated in the discharge. And NASA knows it. That's why they chose to land in this location. What they probably didn't expect to find was this object, which they discovered embedded in soil. What is this cylindrical object? It is most likely a petrified piece of wood from the forest that was said to have existed on the planet. Note that the object is buried into the rubble. That means that it landed and was partially buried by the debris as it landed. Now we have additional confirmation of the landing because this area is surrounded by sand and rubble. We find that the ends are flat, just like the cylinder on Mars. Even more important is that the characteristic outline of the rings are consolidated. And when we look at the black and white images of the purported cylinder, we see that in fact, although very faint, are discolorations that match this kind of shading. So how does electrical petrification happen? James Sorensen from the organization called the Structured Atom Project did a presentation at the Thunderbolts Project Electric Universe Conference in 2019 on what is called elemental transmutations in nature using the structured atom model. He makes a great case for instant petrification being a combination of oxygen and carbon to create silicon. Check it out.
So a lot of you have heard of Peter Mungo-Jupp. He's presented at Electric Universe conferences. And he goes through talking about finding remains, petrified and fossilized remains. And what he's found out, that, for example, this is a mastodon found up in North Dakota. This is most likely was created at the time of a Lakota Indian legend where the Thunderbirds came over. They zapped all the people, and many of them were killed. And the animals were turned into stone. And that's a common theme in a lot of things, is life being turned into stone. He says that the guy excavating this said you can barely tell the difference between this calcium and this sodium, or silicon, I mean. It's hard to say. Well, I'll get to that. You can barely tell the difference between the surrounding material and the bones, and his belief is that when the electricity struck the earth from the Thunderbirds, it caused a transmutation of the carbon and water, and it created silicon. And then instantaneously, it did not take tens of thousands of years or millions of years, it was an instantaneous transmutation. And this is found, it's like a puddle with a whole bunch of these bones all together. And then next to it, you can't find any. So it's just a very localized place where you find these petrified bones. And then you might find another one over here. And the Lakota Indians talk about this, about how they found piles of rocks that look like the animals. So these are actually petrified trees found in Yellowstone. I put that up because another story that Peter Mungo Jupp talks about is where a tree that was getting rained on a power line fell over, and it sat there for several hours. And a few years later, when they dug up the remains, they found out that that tree had petrified. And so somehow the electric power line caused the petrification. So how does that work? Well, this is our picture of oxygen-16. It has the icosahedron in blue and these two extra deuterons in green. And then it has this growth place where it wants to continue growing. This is our carbon. All you do is you take this one proton, move it over to there, and stick this on, and you got silicon. And silicon is the second most prevalent element found on Earth. Oxygen is first. So and carbon is very prevalent in all life forms. So this is a simple way that transmutation could occur, and it's really combining two of these nucleates together to create a new element.
So back at the cylinder, what we're looking at is the remnant of a trunk from a tree of Mars that was petrified in an electrical discharge that formed the Gale crater. One tree experienced enough instant petrification to be preserved, and it landed right here before being covered by rubble around it. Now, why aren't there more petrified trees around it? There very well could be several pieces of rubble that are petrified wood. Wood can be made into petrified rubble through these destructive electrical discharge processes. And unless we look closer at all of the rubble around this cylinder, we won't know for sure. But I promise you, if there's a piece of petrified wood right here, there are shards of petrified wood all around it. So we're back to the discharge that created the three-sided pyramid on Mars. To be clear, prior to the apocalypse that created this discharge area, this area could have very well have held life, such as an ocean, or a forest, or a swamp, or a whole host of things. The original discharge formation we're building off of today is Andrew Hall's keystone pattern, and the shape of Florida exists because the portion of this crust here acted like a battery terminal to a bulb of induction, and that bulb supported a plasma discharge that formed the crater in this region. In other videos, I have aligned the keystone pattern to Dr. Leon Chua's four-sided memristive circuit, called the chaos circuit. Based on this alignment of the four corners, the forces involved in this region of the crust were primarily inductive by nature. They will manifest a bulb if they discharge. According to Electric Universe and catastrophism researcher Trevor Massey, inductors store energy in a magnetic field. Capacitors store energy in the electric field. The outset of the electrical discharge involved a high thermal inrush that resulted in a capacitive three-sided pyramid on the surface of Mars. Massey goes on to explain that the three-sided pyramid, in an electrical context, is the reference to ground of the circuit. There is the ground at the center of the head, and the reference to the ground that established the dividing point between the three parts of the circuit. This reference point created the three-sided pyramid in Massey's opinion, during the inrush of the discharge. My work goes on further to show that the location has three sides because it represents the intersection of the neck, which is attached to the head, and the split between the left arm and leg and the right arm and leg, thus three sides. It's prediction time, and once again, I predict that in the marketplace of ideas, in the theories of what things most likely are, I've once again laid down a solid fulcrum of evidence in our exploration of the history of Mars, the likelihood that we're talking about petrified wood on the surface of Mars, and once again, that most pyramidal structures, in fact, all pyramidal structures on Mars, are results of an electrical discharge during the apocalypse. The history of our planets is coming into light in ways that we have never seen before. And they explain an electrical origin that we call catastrophism, electric universe style. Don't forget to click that like, share, and subscribe button. Leave me a comment down below. Peace out.
Do you think I connected with the kids?
No, you did a great job. I thought the kids really connected with it. It was genius, no question.
Things are easier to understand as a circuit.